games, and I'm wondering how is the vibe different around the building now after 2 straight wins and coming off a big one against LSU?
Well, I think you stay true to what we started off this summer with with Coach Muss and all of the concepts that we've been teaching, and eventually at some point, all that's going to start coming to a head, and you start playing well based on some of the concepts that we started with, and I think it just carried over. I think it's carried over from the last 4 games. You saw some things that were starting to take place with this basketball team, and then it all just started to come together in the last 2 games.
I'm curious what your early impressions are of South Carolina as y'all start prepping for them.
Well, they do go small on occasionally, and those guys are all creators off the dribble. They can create shots, can make some shots, and they're a big team, which now going to be a team that's going to, the shot goes up, they're going to get to the glass. You got a flyer in Bryant, who's Keyshawn Bryant, who's going to be on the perimeter. But anytime there's a shot or a drive to the basket, he's chasing that ball to the basket. So you got to rebound the ball. You got to take care of the basketball to not give them opportunities to score. No different than what on any basketball team you're trying to get done.
Why doesn't every home in the U.S. have solar panels? The #1 reason is not about sunlight or weather.
Bob.
Hey, Keith. I know it can be hard to compare scores, but, Vanderbilt comes here and wins, and then they go back home and South Carolina goes into national and beats them. Is that just what do you think about that? And I guess what does that say about the SEC's balance? And do you talk to your team about that?
Well, yeah, but sometimes it's just hard to, look at another team and see what they did against another team because all the personnel is different. I've tried to play golf and I never can get the ball in the same place every time I go off and tee off, or hit a 7-iron somewhere. I know where I want to get it, but I can't always get it in that spot. So you kind of just got to focus on what you got to do for that next opponent that you're going to play against. Because I think a lot of times your team and that team are completely different when you watch them play against someone else on television.
And then, last week, you just beat Missouri, you win by 44, and then you go and have a huge comeback win at LSU. Do you have to guard against I guess a letdown, or especially with a quick turnaround? It seems like it's just a couple days to come down from the high of that LSU. And how do you handle that?
Well, we shared with the team yesterday that what do you think South Carolina is thinking? Hey, here's a team, Arkansas, backs against the wall. They had a big impressive win against Missouri. They eventually went to LSU and they won. So South Carolina is probably saying the same thing from a teaching standpoint. That team, we can do the same thing they did. We can come in here, they on the basketball high for the most part, and the same thing can happen.
So do you talk to your guys about that, or how do you handle that?
Oh yeah, you just keep focusing on what you got to get done. Here's a team coming in that's going to be desperate, a team that has their back against the wall. And if you don't go out and try to impose your will on the game, you can allow this team to play with you and allow this team to because they don't care what you just did. It's all about what you're going to focus on getting ready to play in this game here.
And then
What up? It's the Tuesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. Out here on KDSJ 479, brought to you by Lindsay & Associates. Also, too, Locomotion, Corey Bates Custom Painting, A Cut Above Barbershop, and Fayetteville Glass are proud sponsors of On the Hill. And also, too, Storms Orthodontics. They're a proud sponsor as well. Arkansas tonight, home against the South Carolina Gamecocks, as Frank Martin brings his ball club in, looking for an upset. This is a game I think Arkansas really has to go in and take care of business. These are one of those you circle even before the season starts as a win. And just another conference, feather in your cap is basically, so to speak, what I like to look at it. So, Arkansas is really going to have to play. But, came off a big win this past weekend at LSU, beating the number 12 team in the country. LSU came in 15-1. Very long, the best defense team in the conference, pretty much best offense. Thought Arkansas, and I've been real tough, Demetrius. Let's just be honest with this team. I thought this team played with a purpose for the first time all year. I thought they played team defense. Still got to get Chris Likes under control. But I thought for the most part, Jalen Williams, the sophomore, is starting to become the face of this basketball team and program, this leader I think that they so desperately needed. He made some plays down the stretch and throughout that game. And I was one of the main ones talking about 10 points, 10 rebounds, 34 minutes, but it's the plays that he makes. I fail to realize sometimes I get so spoiled by Jalen taking those charges. You become accustomed to that, and so you overlook that. The extra passes that he makes that may not show up because of the pass before the assist. I mean, just all the little things that J-Dub does. I'm starting to have a greater appreciation, and to me, if you're gonna wear that number 10, the University of Arkansas, you got to be a stud. You talk about all the great ones that's worn it. I think it goes back to Ron Brewer Sr., Todd Day, Bobby Portis. I mean, do we need to continue on? Ronnie Brewer Jr. And now, Daniel Gafford. I mean, number 10 here at Arkansas means something. Kind of like number 7 in football at LSU. Number 10 means something here at Arkansas. A lot of success for those that wear it. I mean, in your opinion, how big was that? Because, let's face it, they were on one leg limping in. And I know they had that big win against Missouri, Demetrius, but they were really on one leg, and there was still so much uncertainty about this basketball team going into last weekend.
Yeah, I think it was just a nice switch up. I don't think people are going to give Coach Smart the credit that he deserves as far as stepping in and giving these guys a different atmosphere to play under. Not saying Coach Muss is toxic or anything like that. Just sometimes you can get more out of a person when you have a different strategy going in. And I think just having a break and really appreciating Coach Muss while he's away, I think makes this team stronger and understand that this is only going to bring them closer and bring cohesion to the team, knowing that they still can function without the head coach. And I think that's a great tribute. I think it makes the players step up and make it be a player-led team. Even though, Coach Smart is in there coaching these guys, now these players have to hold each other accountable for what's going on while Coach Muss is away.
And the same thing, also, too, it like I said, it has to be player-driven. I think this coaching staff, the one thing they have done is stuck to the plan. They haven't deviated. They haven't, made too many outlandish adjustments on, during the season. They just stuck to the core, and I think that's starting to buy in. The kids are starting to buy into the defensive scheme, to the offensive scheme, and then the main thing I think is trust. If you don't trust the guy next to you, you're fighting an uphill battle. And I think with so many great offensive players that Arkansas brought in from the grad transfer portal, it takes time, and I think you're starting to see that they are getting better week to week. And I think that, top to bottom, this week of basketball at home against Missouri and this past weekend at LSU, best offensive and defensive, game that I've seen this team play. Like I said, still got to get Chris Likes under control. This thing, sometimes I just think the young man's a ball stopper. Doesn't move like it needs to move. Now I understand he's very aggressive, and you don't want to take that from Chris, but also, too, at the same time, you got to understand when to pick and choose, when to take shots, when to drop it off. Multiple times I saw on Saturday, just one extra pass leads to an easy bucket. I think that's something that, Chris has got to get better on. But also, too, I think the staff is starting to really, really reemphasize, if you don't rebound, you're not going to play. You have got to fight, be it guard, forward, center, doesn't matter. You got to fight for rebounds and play on a tough level. And I think they're starting to make this team do it. Not asking, but they're starting to force this team to do it.
Yeah, I think that was something that I heard from Jalen Williams saying that the coaches were really stressing. I happened to catch Eric Musselman live. And I think, I think it was Leaks, matter of fact. And he was just talking about how much these coaches are stressing defense and how these guys, if they don't play defense, they're not getting on the court. These guys can come in and move the ball and score points, but the objective of the game is to outscore and stop your opponent from scoring. And Arkansas wasn't doing a lot of stopping opponents. And I think now, again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, just having that different energy with Coach Smart, reiterating some of the same things that Coach Musselman was doing, but maybe doing them in a different way is really helping these guys take their game to the next level.
Hey, well, we're going to take our game to the next level because there's a program on the hill that's going to the next level in that transfer portal. We call it Portal Combat. I'm telling you, they're working in. We'll talk about some of the guys that are going to be making their way to February and just what type of impact that we think they'll have with the Hogs in 2022. It's the Tuesday edition on KDSJ 479. We'll be right back.
How'd you feel like the team handled those stretches where he was out with foul trouble? And then when you're in those situations, who do you look to score?
Well, in that case there, you want to make sure that he's not reaching and getting some delicate fouls, because you're going to need him late in the game. And that's when you start going through committee, trying to figure out what player you need to give you buy time on the clock, buy time on the floor. He's not disrupting what you're trying to get done until you can get JD back on the floor. And I think we had a committee of that between Chris Likes, KK came in for a quick spell. Devo obviously came in and played well. So all those guys kind of fit together. And that's what a team does. A team figures out ways how to do things.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Scotty.
Hey, Coach, it seemed like you guys really figured some things out defensively last week. I'm curious, what do you think has changed, or what are some things that improved after that slow start?
I think the rebounding, for one, the three-point shooting, or it could be that you're changing, playing against different teams that don't emphasize the three as much. You got certain guys that can shoot it. So I think that combination helped. But I think a lot of the concept that, that Muss has instilled here and what we worked on so much leading up to the last 4 games, I would say, guys start being in a position where they're supposed to be. Guys going to blockouts. We say blockout when you're on perimeter, you don't go into the paint to rebound. You go to an elbow ready to chase a ball down or block a guy out from there. Shot goes up, you step to your guy first. You seek him, and then you box him out. And I think all that stuff started coming together for us, and we hope that this team can continue to do that.
Do you feel like any player in particular is maybe hitting their stride defensively, or maybe just getting it more than they were in previous games?
I think more than anything, you want to make sure that, and Coach can tell you this as well, you want to make sure your team is developing defensively and offensively, because if you just kind of wait for your offense or one player to develop on either side of the ball, well, it's still a team game. So you got to just make sure the entire team is developing and growing. And I think that's what happened over the last 5 games or so, 4.5 games.
Drinking water before bed burns 46 pounds in 2 weeks. If you are struggling to lose weight and you're over 25.
Welcome back to the Tuesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins. Hey, we're on our YouTube live stream. What's up? We need to come on here more, Demetrius. We got to come on and start streaming a lot on our On the Hill Sports Talk YouTube live stream. People hadn't seen us very much. We'll make more stops on as we move along in the year of 2022. But the transfer portal, I'm labeling it as the portal combat for the University of Arkansas. They're tearing it up. When you look at this, and I'm going to break this down. Let me break this down for you. We're going to talk about the big 4. We're going to talk about 2 5-stars, and we're going to talk about 2 4-stars. But all in all, people, the one thing I don't think people realize, Demetrius, these are 4 high school All-Americans that are coming to the University of Arkansas. To couple along with what you have in the freshman class, incoming Isaiah Satania, Chambly, Mbake, you have your punter. You have a lot of pieces that's starting to come to Fayetteville. Now, think about this. I'm saying this. Sam Dan Pittman is creating a culture. Culture is what wins you football games. I know you can get the Jimmies and the Joes, but if you ain't got the culture, kids don't want to be around a bad vibe. The culture is starting to be built here at the University of Arkansas with the recruiting, with the development, the weight training, and then the way they go out and compete. And when you get a guy like Drew Sanders, a former 5-star out of Denton Guyer in Denton, Texas, not too far from here, 5-star linebacker comes in, kid could have gone anywhere, Demetrius. I mean, absolutely anywhere. But he chooses Arkansas. Has to be a credit to the program, and also give credit to new linebacker coach Mark Sherrier. I mean, he has this ability that he's reeled in some pretty impressive linebackers, not just Sanders, but you look at the class he's got coming in from high school. Big time, D.
It's huge, Pat. I think it accredited Sam. A lot of people said they didn't know if he would be able to recruit, as a first-time head coach, and he's continuing to show that recruiting has changed.
Right.
What we once thought you had to do to recruit. It's different now. You got to learn to relate. You got to be on social media. You got to have a history. You got to have a track record of putting guys in the NFL. And
Right.
although Sam didn't have the experience, he checked off a lot of other boxes. And I think you're seeing why people are interested in coming to Arkansas. And, we have a lot of, or I should say a couple of fans that kind of chime in every now and then and talk about
Right.
Arkansas's coaching staff and the job that Sam's doing here. And he's showing you that he can coach. Guys wouldn't want to come here
Right.
if they didn't think this guy could get them to the next level, especially when you're talking about a guy such as Sanders that's at a prestigious university like Alabama, which is the school for football. When you look at where you go,
Right.
where you have the options to go, and when you get an offer from Alabama, you're an elite status player for Nick Saban to be calling you and coming to your doorstep. So again, to me, it shows you the type of recruiting and the coaching ability that this staff has.
I mean, there's a kid that could have gone back home, Demetrius. He could have went back and played at TCU, at Baylor, at A&M, at Texas. I mean, let's be honest. He's a 5-star. Coming from, like you said, I thought that was a great point. He's coming from Alabama. So, where he's coming from, development and competition he's used to. He's not going to shy away from that. But I think what he sees here at Arkansas, when you look at his options, you see 3 linebackers that were very productive in a Barry Odom scheme defense. If you go back to Barry's history at Missouri, Demetrius, I mean, linebackers make plays in this type of defense. And hell, a lot of playing time last time I checked I know you have Andrew Parker, Bumper Poole, Chris Paul. I get that. But still, there's a lot of snaps to be had in the coming years.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a guy that they can build on and then also can recruit. When you talk about these guys coming from Alabama, they're looked upon as the guy from their hometown. And I think that's how you really build those bridges and those pipelines to get kids interested. When you can go get a big name guy like Hazelwood, and although he didn't come straight to Arkansas, people are gonna change from that OU jersey to that Arkansas jersey just to support him and be a fan of Hazelwood. And now they're gonna be new Hogs. So I think
how you lead into that. You see how you lead into our next grad transfer, another 5-star kid was rated the number 4 player in his class coming out in 2020. Big time. I mean, big time. When you can get a kid that, like we say, has a chance to go back to Georgia. I mean, this is a Georgia kid that could have gone back to the SEC and played for the Bulldogs, chose to come to Arkansas. And Demetrius, we always talk about, we believe the Traylon Burks effect will be kind of like the Julio Jones effect for future wide receivers. We saw it with Isaiah Satania. We saw it with Quincy McAdoo. We saw it with Sam Mbake. We see it even more so when you get a 5-star that comes in from Oklahoma, Jaden Hazelwood, that's so highly thought of on the national scene. And I think that's going to help Arkansas even further on years down the road in the state of Georgia. Getting this kid to come over from Oklahoma, you talked about it. A lot of people, well, who's going to be the next Traylon Burks? There could be a potential 4 or 5. I think next year's group, Demetrius, will be one of the more balanced wide receiver groups in this program's history. I really like the makeup of this team, and I just think, with another year, KJ in year 2, he's going to be more comfortable, seeing the different offensives or defenses that he saw. This could be a special group as well. There's going to be a lot of dang speed. I know that.
And not only that, it's going to be success by committee. We won't have to lean on, a guy like Traylon Burks, where we saw the drop off in the level of play when he wasn't included in the plays or, wasn't on the field. I don't think you have that drop off now when you talk about having a Davion Warren and running back in Dominique Johnson. I said Warren. What's the other Warren?
You talking about Jaquelin?
Crawford. Crawford, yes, sir.
Right.
And the other one from Florida State.
Warren Thompson.
Warren Thompson. I said Davion Warren, but I was thinking of Warren Thompson. When you talk about Hazelwood and Warren Thompson and guys like that, you don't need just one player. You have guys that you can really spread the ball around and give KJ Jefferson the weapons that he's going to need, and also the ability to use his legs as that final component of the offense.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I just think, the additions that Arkansas has been able, and the portal, Demetrius, and for you listeners, has been very good to Sam Pittman and the University of Arkansas since his arrival here in Fayetteville. I mean, you initiated by getting Felipe Franks. I think that was the big shot in the arm for this program. You know, not only just for the grad transfer, but I think recruiting-wise, I think getting Felipe Franks to say that he's going to be the quarterback here and he believed in Coach Browse and Coach Pittman, I think that was really big as far as recruiting as a whole. And I think that's only going to continue. I mean, kids understand that, you know, you look at Felipe, you look at Utsi, you look at Ridgeway, you look at Williams. These are all grad transfer guys that came to Arkansas and had some tremendous amount of success, and now as a result, they're having an opportunity to try to go forward in their dreams, which is realizing a day to play on Sundays in the NFL. And grad transfers are going to see that. I mean, they're going to see how Arkansas, the development here, and Demetrius, we've had a chance from 2013. I started back then. We started this show in 2016 with Bielema, Morris, and now we see Pittman. We've had a chance to see the different cultures, and what I mean by that, the development part of things. We've had a chance to see, and there's a tremendous difference from what we saw previous two staffs to what we see now. I mean, without question, when they say this is new Arkansas, that holds a lot of weight now.
No, absolutely, and I think that's the best way to describe it as a new Arkansas. You know, now you're looking at Arkansas being the top 20 starting the year off. It's been a while since we've been a preseason, favorite. You're starting to see the recruiting numbers go up. You're starting to see, like you said, college game day being interested in even coming to Arkansas and coming to Arkansas multiple times in a year and understanding what Sam Pittman is building here. You know, you have guys like Tim Tebow that speak highly of Sam Pittman and the job he's done in the short amount of time and the success that he's had with the players that he's had on campus, because people don't know Arkansas was behind when you talk about recruiting until Sam Pittman got here.
That's an understatement.
And the development of these guys. You know, when you talk about guys like Joe Fouché having the ability to play at Arkansas and then transfer to a school like LSU, that's due to Sam Pittman and the scheme that these guys brought in and gave them the ability to play in, because these guys wasn't doing that with Chief. Let's just be real. Chief was not doing it.
He's leading into a lot of good stuff. This is all the maturation process, because now we talk about Louisiana. Let's talk about the two guys Arkansas was able to pull from the LSU University. And I think, the guy we're talking about here coming up momentarily just committed this past weekend. Dwight McLaughlin, special, was recruited by the Chad Moore staff. I remember Mark Smith was his lead recruiter. Did make an official visit to Arkansas back with that staff, but I think he's going to be tremendous. This is a big-time get. 6'2", about 190, 195 pounds or two. Guy made a lot of plays, I believe, in the Arkansas game, had 3 tackles, pass breakup. Just an all-around athlete that can make plays. He's a two-sided, he can play both ways. Arkansas will have him at corner, but don't be shocked if you see Dwight at some point in his career here in Fayetteville go to that receiver, that slot position, and maybe catch a few jet sweeps or be in the punt, the kicking game. These are some of the areas that I think Arkansas and having Dwight McLaughlin will be massive. I mean, massive get. And when you trade off, and you don't want to, but that's just, Demetrius, I'm be real. To get Dwight McLaughlin is worth losing 2 to LSU. I mean, he makes up for 2 players. His ability to play the game at the cornerback spot is what you look for in the SEC. Because Sam even mentioned earlier in the year, speed corner. This dude is the definition of speed corner.
Absolutely, and I think he feels that Monteric Brown, that lockdown corner that we know. Hey, you might be playing the best receiver every game, and I think McLaughlin, he's going to accept that challenge and want to be that player. Even when you think about cornerbacks from LSU, those are the type of corners that they recruit, guys that can play man coverage, guys that play bump and run, and I think that was a lot of what Coach Odom wants to do, but didn't have the skill set of players to do on the defensive side. Even when you talk about us having to run that 3-5, 3-4 defense with those down linemen, that was a scheme that he maybe didn't want to play, but had to do. Play that scheme just due to the lack of ability of guys being able to cover and having to drop more guys back on the back end. Now you can play that man defense and blitz more and play a little bit more exotic coverages, and I think that's a lot of what Arkansas fans want to see from the defense.
Right. And, I mean, when you look at it, too, this is going to be a team, I think, defensively, they're going to be real good. I think secondary-wise, they've taken a step up with the additions. And, still yet there is possible additions on that defensive side of the ball, as well. I mean, they're not done by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, got a young man that possibly could become a Razorback in the 23 class defensive end. Caleb James will be making his decision. Young man out of the state of Texas at 3 p.m. today will decide. Today's his 17th birthday, so we'll keep a close eye. But, hey, we'll come back and talk about that last grad transfer portal and just the impact he'll make as well. Yes, and then he was from the boot as well. It's our Tuesday edition. Back in a second. And welcome back to our Tuesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio here on KDSJ 479. Talking about the transfer portal. Kind of breaking down the young men that Arkansas will be welcoming to Fayetteville. And make a note that the transfer guys have until Monday on the 24th to enroll in their school of choice. For those that might want to know the information, they have till this coming Monday to pick that school of choice. And I don't think this program's done. I think this program is still talking to a bunch of guys out there in the transfer portal as well as the high school ranks as well. I really see these next 2 weekends being really big for this program, not only for 22, but also 23 going forward, building those relationships. I mean, after this coming weekend, there's going to be in the 23 class some big-time young men that's made their way to Fayetteville, and we go back to the culture. I mean, Arkansas and kids like to say that in today's society, the move. Arkansas is one of those schools that when you talk football in an SEC potential destination, Coach Sam Pittman's program is starting to be one that you talk about. And it's based on what kids have seen in the last 2 years. Now, you saw a 3-17, but you saw a vastly improved football team. Without question. A vastly improved football team. And I think this program is on the spiral upward. I do think they're a possible 9-win, possibly 10, maybe 11-win team next year. I said it. I'm not going to change it. I think KJ will be up for, maybe first, second team. I think we'll be talking about KJ for SEC Player of the Year honors. I mean, this guy has nothing but leadership ability all over him. For the patience that he showed for the last, those previous 3 years, coming in so highly thought of, I mean, you have to be a different quarterback to be able to deal with not being able to play, especially when your freshman year, there's 2 quarterbacks, Demetrius, that we know had no business playing in front of it. But he stayed. And then when just you think you're going to get that chance, here comes Felipe Franks, and you stay. So KJ's paid his dues, and I think the dues that were paid resulted in the toughest schedule in college football, but a 9-4 result. And now people are talking about KJ as one of the elite quarterbacks in this conference, which it should have been a year ago before he even took his first snap. I'm not surprised. We're not surprised here at On the Hill. The eye test, if you go out and watch kids, you know who has it and who don't. Players separate themselves, and even more so, they separate themselves in practice when it's not the 60 to 70 to 80,000 people. No. And I saw that with KJ. I saw a guy that kept his head down and just kept chopping wood. Just kept chopping wood. And gaining the trust of not just his offensive lineman, Demetrius, or his running backs, but the other side of the football, all 11, 22 guys in the special teams. He gained the trust of this football team. And he's clearly by far going to be the face of the Arkansas Razorbacks, and rightfully so. He should be. I mean, we're going to give Catalana, we're going to give Bumper Pool, we're going to give them their just due. captains for next year. Who you think they're going to be? I think I got 4. I think you'll see KJ once again. I think Ricky Stromberg could be one. Bumper and Jalen Catalon. The 5th one I think is going to be up for grabs. But I think I think those 4 could be legitimate captains for next year's team and would be great choices to lead this program the way the coach says it needs to be led, by working hard, playing physical, and demanding the best from your teammate. That's what Arkansas football is all about, and that's Sam Pittman. That's Sam Pittman wrapped up in a nutshell, and you got to love it. There's no other coach in college athletics that would be the fit like Sam Pittman is for the University of Arkansas, without question. There's no other coach, Demetrius.
No, I think that was one of those match made in heaven. Almost, people may not want to say it, but Ed Orgeron at LSU, I think it's one of those, the shoe fits, so you got to wear it, and Sam Pittman fits that Hog shoe perfect. I think he's everything a Hog fan wants in a coach. Right. When you talk about what he represents and what he stands for, and what he means to this state. I think he's really brought life back to Fayetteville. Even when you talk about the success of the basketball team, people might not even think that, but I think those two kind of go hand in hand when you talk about success that comes with those two programs. Usually when Arkansas football does good, even in recruiting, it helps bring and shines the light on basketball and basketball with football. So I think Arkansas is in a great place right now, even when you look at other sports. I just think they're headed in the right direction. I just think we have to learn to run those big games. Right. Learn how to live in those big moments where we go in there and upset big teams that we're not supposed to be in games that really matter. Not talking about when we're irrelevant and then we go upset a team, but I'm talking about when we're relevant and then we go in and beat somebody like a Georgia that nobody expects us to be, that we know is going to be, the king of the hill, but we go in there and upset it. I think that's where Arkansas is at. Everybody's waiting to see what we do next, especially when you talk about football, because we hadn't seen this type of success in a long time, and now everybody's going to be the expectation for what's to come is going to be higher. And I think you're seeing it with the recruiting, you're seeing it with the coaching staff, and you're seeing it with the pressure that they're putting on these players to be better.
I saw a stat and it kind of caught me off guard, and I would like to share it, is I believe since the 2021 season, no other program, as far as when you talk about men's football, basketball, men's basketball, men's baseball, had a higher winning percentage than the University of Arkansas. In all of college athletics, Arkansas had, I believe, almost 74%. Alabama was right below Arkansas. But when you think about that, tremendous for this program. And you have to commend the biggest of the biggest hogs, Hunter Yurchek, for the way he's brought these coaches to the university, the way he believes in them, the resources that he has at their disposal. I mean, Hunter's first and foremost about the student-athlete experience and how the coaches are able to share in that student-athlete experience. Best there is. Been around 2 other previous ADs here at the University of Arkansas. Hunter Yurchek rivals neither one of them. I mean, Hunter takes a back seat, I should say, to neither one of them. Hunter Yurchek gets it. He gets it. And, he's one of those supportive ADs that's at every event. Doesn't matter. I mean, and I see him sometimes. I mean, you can tell the guy's tired. But the commitment that he has to this university as a fan and as a player, I mean, an athlete or a coach or any type of administration on that campus in the athletic program, you have to be proud for the leader that you have. That's a special guy. So humble is the one thing. And then he's a coach, and I like it when you see him on the sideline and you get that type of rawness like we did in Alabama, that one scene. You get that rawness from him. Those are the types of guys if I'm a coach, I want to work for that guy because I know he got my back. He has my program's back. So, I mean, Hunter Yurchek, take it back. I mean, you are to be commended for the culture that you've been able to create here. And I believe the 4 years that he's been the AD here at the University of Arkansas, going on 5. Man, hard to believe He's been here that long. But, I mean, he's done a lot in a short period of time. Done an awful lot. But that's going to wrap up our show today. We'll be back tomorrow with more on the Hill. I want to give a shout-out to the sponsors that make this possible. Lindsay & Associates with an office location in Fayetteville, an office location also, too, in Rogers. Locomotion, they're just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall in Fayetteville. Corey Beck's Custom Painting, a cut above barbershop there in the Promenade. And lastly, Fayetteville Glass. They're at 1725 College Avenue. Family owned since 1947. That's Fayetteville Glass, not Auto Company, Inc. And lastly, Storms Orthodontics. They have locations in Fayetteville, Springdale, and in Siloam Springs. Want to give a shout out to those sponsors that make this really, really, really possible each and every day. But hey, from my producer, myself, to you all, we'll be back tomorrow. We hope you will too. It's been the Tuesday edition on on the Hill on KDSJ 479. Y'all be blessed. Take care. And you know them last words. Let's get it.